Today on The Riff, Jeremy and Justin talk about year-end reviews. Turns out they're both very sensitive when it comes to their technical skills. Jeremy, Justin, I think that you both have adequate technical skills. Don't let that define who you are as a person. We hope today is helpful and hopeful. Thanks for listening.
Hello, Riff Raff. It is not lost on me that you took time out of your busy week, or you didn't have a busy week, but either way that you are with us today, and we celebrate that. Justin, you're looking at me funny.
Well, you're a man of detail. You are. I've always said that. Your microphone is completely pointing to the side.
Well,
there you go.
There we go.
I don't even, you're so detailed.
I know.
And then when it comes to this kind of stuff, it's just like, I don't care.
I usually dot my I's and cross my T's, but...
My eyes cross.
Yeah,
that's
I
right.
did it right.
No,
yeah.
That's right. I was just making sure. Yeah.
Well, welcome. Justin, what do you think of when you realize that there are literally other people listening to our conversation? Creepy or not?
I think maybe not true, number one.
Okay.
And then if it is true, a little creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to stretch you in that because I have met people, not just in the great state of Missouri. I've met people recently. I was out of town and I met people across the country who listen to the Riff every week.
Were you related?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes, I was related. Now, let me tell you a story of someone I wasn't related to that talked to me about the Riff.
Please.
They said they met you for the first time recently. And I don't remember who it is that I'm talking about, but the conversation a couple weeks ago, someone said, I met Justin for the first time and it was interesting. I've listened to him so many times, which tells me they don't watch on YouTube. Okay. Mm-hmm. They're listening to the podcast. I listened to him so many times and I pictured what he would look like.
Oh, please. So this is going to be a fun one.
I said, did it match the description? They said, yes.
Really?
They said, we pictured him to be, they said, I didn't like their words. They were a younger person. They said middle age, 30s.
Okay,
I didn't know middle age is 30s.
I'll take that though.
Did you say middle age is 30s? But you're 30s, right? Or did you just turn 40?
You just turned 40. I just turned 40.
Yeah, I missed your 40th birthday.
Yeah. I didn't want to, I didn't know if we were going to talk about
what
that.
I meant is I missed the invitation.
I didn't.
Normally we go to Incredible Pizza.
Okay, here's the truth. I drove by your house 2 days before my birthday.
I saw that on my Ring camera.
Thinking he might do it before.
Yep.
I drove by the day of.
Yep.
And then I drove by 2 days after, thinking, the surprise party is going to be after.
Yeah.
And the surprise party has not happened yet.
Justin, would it be a surprise if it happened in the month of your birthday? No.
So good.
Yeah.
So, okay, they say
middle age in his 30s,
which I love. That's great.
Tattoos.
Okay. They say tattoos
and beard, and they said that's exactly what we saw.
Wow.
So you just come across that way with your voice
as tattooed, bearded, and middle age.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Should I take that as a compliment or a?
I thought it was such a compliment. I was afraid to ask them what they thought I would have looked like had they just listened to my voice. Because I've said my audible doppelganger, so my dottable, okay? Would you call that a doppelganger? Is Sid the Sloth. I've shared that, and I don't like that. Do you feel there's anything to that?
No, I don't. I don't.
Good.
Let's talk about the other one. The other doppelganger.
Tim Robinson?
I do feel like there's some validity to this one. I do.
The comedian Tim Robinson.
Yeah, there's a couple moments where I'm like, that's the same human.
It's been a long time, and I'm not exaggerating. It has been a long time since I've gone a full week without sending me a picture of Tim Robinson.
I feel like that. Do you remember the years where you were like, hey, do you know Andrew Luck? Do you remember that? Do you remember those years?
Oh, yeah. I'm reminded of them every time I come to the office.
And then you would always say, "You really look like him."
I think you look like Andrew Luck.
He's the goofiest look. If Andrew, if you're listening, sorry.
And he probably is.
I am not.
No.
But he's got some pretty goofy looks, man. Couple goofy smiles here and there. His beard is patchy.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Every time I look at it, I'm like, that's not a compliment. Unless you're listening, Andrew, and then it is a compliment.
I was thinking more in the lines of absolutely ripped. Looks like a man's man and makes millions of dollars.
I don't think that's what Andrew Luck looks like.
Looks like he can afford braces now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are we talking about today?
I think we just did.
Well, that was a good one.
Yeah.
5 minutes in.
Yeah. So we just are walking through, just finalize our annual reviews at work. So we wanted to take a moment. We know that there are a lot of people who you're in a setting where you're doing annual reviews or evaluations. Maybe you have people who do that for you, that lead that process. Maybe you lead the process. And if you're not in a work setting that does that, or there's the power of evaluation. So I thought we would walk through our annual reviews, and then we would let that leak into kind of a overarching theme of the importance of evaluation. So
I love it.
Yeah. So let's start with why don't you talk a little bit about what we do organizationally in the months of November, December.
We've gone through quite a few different phases, because we're always trying to figure out what's most helpful for the person filling this out. And as the organization has grown or changed or morphed or merged into this, it's always something different. So one of the things that we really want to focus on is, can we get the most candid response from anybody and everybody that we ask?
Well, now, why is it important that it's candid? Because that's a huge deal to us.
It is a huge deal to us. A, it saves time. And B, you get to the heart of the matter. Like you actually, there's always a thing under the thing, right? So if we talk about this thing that's on the surface, there's always a root to that.
Yeah.
So we really just want to say, hey, what's the root? Like, we are mature enough. We trust here. We really want to get better. And we want to make sure that if you're going to work here, or if I'm going to work here, we're going to create an environment that's fun and that's life-giving and that's challenging and that's going to move people forward. So one of the things that we do is we do a survey. So the survey is, you put your name on it, and then it's about, 7 questions now. That used to be a 30, 40 question.
Yeah, it was a document.
It was long.
It was a thesis.
Yeah. And then last question was always anything that you want to share. And it was usually, this is way too long. So that's what.
And I loved it. I loved it because I love to get the data. And,
I did too.
But eventually, as much as I loved all the data, and there was a reason why we had all those questions there, it was obvious that it wasn't a shared value from the team. And we felt like we were even getting less valuable data with a lot of people because the whole process was too long.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they write their name on it. I would write my name on it. We fill those out. It's questions like, out of our 5 handles, right? The 5 H's. What is something that you're seeing in the organization that exemplifies hustle, exemplifies humble? Like maybe who exemplifies those elements? Give me some examples of that. That is a great way to celebrate people.
Oh, yeah.
It's also a great way to see, culturally, they're not hitting the mark on this. Like this person has come up a couple of times. Let's just have a conversation about that with them, about it. But one of the things that we get to do through that is we actually tally those up.
Yeah.
And we give a huge award at the end of the year. And I already know. We
just did it.
And I know. Wait, what day is today?
It's being released. Now, when I say that, that's kind of a weird prophetic deal. No, I'm also thinking in the biz.
Because we're a week
this
ahead.
This drops after we've already given it out.
After.
Right. But we haven't yet given it out.
Oh, my word.
So something's going to happen from the time, by the time we record this and the time that you hear this, we will have announced the 5H Award of the Year to a staff member.
Golly.
It's one of our biggest prizes of the year.
It is. So it's kind of fun because I can actually talk about him.
Yeah.
It's Terry Scott Jr. T.S.
I was going to say you just let the cat out of the bag.
But I didn't.
You didn't. Because he was all over. If you don't know Terry Scott Jr., he works at the Dream Center. And this dude, he's just all over
He showed up in so many reports of having an incredible attitude, being so helpful, being so hopeful, having so much hustle, hungry to learn like crazy. And what's crazy about this is Terry's not full time.
No.
So for somebody to show up in that kind of a way, that's not a 40-hour person. And also, in order to like have all of those tallies, you got to show up on both the North Point side and the Dream Center side.
Yeah.
So just the cross functionality that this guy has,
Yeah.
he's a rock star.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that we get to do through that. We also have a couple of questions of worst day, best day.
Yeah.
And some people might think, why would you ask that? Those are two of my favorite questions, because the best day actually shows, for me at least, like what is the actual heart of this person? Like what are they actually looking for? Because
Yeah.
my best day and your best day or her best day are totally different because of the lens that we have. So it at least helps me understand, okay, what lens do they have? Just
Right.
what are they looking for to be a win, especially if they're on my team and I haven't celebrated those types of things. Like, oh, I'm missing the mark on that one because I'm just celebrating the things I like. Same thing for a worst day. What's the lens that they have? Like, that was a bad day for you?
Right.
That was my best day. Like, so those questions are very, very helpful when
Yeah.
they're answered in a very candid way. And then there's some other ones in there of just something that you would want to talk to your team lead about. Very, very simple questions that give us just
What
a
adjustments would
viewpoint.
you want to make to your
What
role if you
adjustments
could?
in a perfect world, all those kind of things. And that's a very, very helpful survey. You have anything else on that, on the survey element that we do?
Well, one of the reasons why I like that question, what was your best day? What was your worst day? We talk sometimes on the weekends when we talk about career and calling and whatnot. We've talked a lot about, how to identify what I should be doing with my days. It's what lights me up on the inside, and that when I do it, it lights someone else up on their inside. And really, what we're showing is what day represents something that brought life to you and was made an impact. And then sometimes the negative is when someone's doing something that adds life to them, but it's not add life to someone else. It's so frustrating. It's so defeating because you're like, man, I really wanted this, so it just helps us understand what is it that adds life to them, and then figure out, okay, if that's missionally aligned, then we figure out a role to give them more of those kind of days. Because if they're good at it and it's missionally aligned, then why wouldn't we want that kind of result and energy?
Yeah. So we've got those surveys, and then we started this 2 years ago, probably.
Yeah, this
It's
was the
fairly
second
new.
year.
It's fairly new.
This was Colin. I don't know if maybe people know Colin and Linda, but Colin is someone who's helped me with our end of the year survey. He's done this in a lot of different lens, but he introduced me to, I can't remember what book it was that we got out of, some leadership book. So he introduced, and we've used a version of it.
We have.
It's a 360 survey.
It's great.
Yeah.
And here's what's great about it is it's anonymous.
Yes.
So when we talk about candor, when you take the 360 reviews, and there's a comment section, and it really takes a look at the leader that is in the organization. So whoever your direct report is, it's walking through about 25 questions on an agree, strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree type of deal. So there's no neutral.
Yep.
You're either agreeing or disagreeing with these things. Things like, is this leader, can you trust this leader? Are they respectful? Do
Yeah.
they talk behind people's backs? Right? Just different questions that you're like, those are pretty good questions.
Yeah.
And then there's a comment section of strengths that they have, weaknesses that they have. So we're asking you as the team member to fill this out about the person that's leading you.
Yeah.
We also ask the person that is leading them to fill it out about themselves. So they do a self-assessment and they do the exact same thing. So then what we do is we take those scores and we take the scores that came in from their team and we put them against each other. So
Yeah.
number one shows us, are we self-aware of our leadership?
Yeah.
And number two, what it shows us is the surveys aren't super candid. Because the real things that come up in the 360, you're like, there's the roots. I want to get to that, right? So now it's trying to understand, okay, so now just what questions am I asking if I read this? And I've got a couple of things that are disagree or strongly disagree. My mind immediately goes to, all right, who else is that true for? Because chances are they're not the only one that feels that way or has experienced that. There's some type of truth there that's probably not isolated, but how do I show up in that way in other spaces other than just that one singular spot? Because when I read all of the surveys, it's like, awesome, 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 awesome. Hey, we could work on this, maybe.
Yeah. Consider if you got time.
Consider if you got time, which is kind, and I get it. I also respond that way. But these 360s are so helpful. And I know they're helpful, at least for me, because they bug me. So anytime I'm like in a space or a situation where I'm like, this is ridiculous, this is no, that's when I know I'm onto something. Like I just know it. So tell me your perspective of that one that we use.
Well, so how many direct reports do you serve?
6.
Okay. So I think I had 7 people either directly or indirectly, kind of what we call dotted line. We've used that phrase over the times, but that filled it out for me. So what I like about it's tougher to guess, right?
Yeah.
So here's what I learned about me. We want it to be anonymous because we want there to be a voice that's an accurate voice. We want to hear what we need to hear, even if whether we wish people could be that candid with us in person, because I feel like anybody could be that candid to me in person, but I don't know if that's true. I say that, but I also realize that could be awkward for a lot of reasons. And I don't know how well I would steward that information. I would hope to do good, but I also know it's a challenge because when I read it anonymously, there's some of my mental energy thinking, what, come on, right? And so we talk about that even today of when we come in, when I read these 7 reports that come in anonymously about these 25 questions, what's interesting is I self-scored on average lower about me than the 7 people said about me. But I'm still surprised and frustrated about the areas they didn't give me a perfect score.
Hey, man. So it's like, I'm going to come in at a 1. And when I get a 4, it's going to feel even better.
So I like it. I love the data. How many employees at some level did you say 78, 80?
We had 78 surveys come in.
78 between the Dream Center and North Point. So, and we read every single one of them.
Yeah.
The team leads of each area, each individual one, pour over all of them. But I'm looking for threads, cultural statements about our organization, any red flags. And so as I read that, I think it's very helpful. It's helpful for me as a leader. Also, it's interesting is I'm not trying to get 100% on this. And there's a part of my people pleasing that says, hey, how do I get 100% for everybody who reports this about me? And the truth is, we can't be all things to all people. What I have to do is be completely aware of where the challenge is for somebody. Understand that if it's a surprise, I got to lean into it. If it's not a surprise, then I have to evaluate, am I being lazy in this area or is this an intentional area where, like if someone in the organization is saying, access to me is not as much as they want it to be. I mean, ultimately that's got to be true for many people in the organization if we have 78 people, right? And so I got to be fine with that at some level. If it's a low score on, if it's showing that I'm disrespectful to somebody, it doesn't matter if it's one person in the organization that feels that. That's important, right? Because that matters. Because now that's not an area where strategically we just have to make this different. Like we'll never get to a size of space where it's ever appropriate for me to be disrespectful to somebody. And so there are some things in there that will hit me. I'll tell you the one that messes me the most.
Go for it.
Okay. There's one area that I want to get 100% on. And I didn't.
Right. What is it?
And it just bugs me.
Which one?
It bugs me. Does your team lead have the technical skills to do the job? And I want people to be like, well, here's the deal. I can say a lot of things about Jeremy, but heck yeah, he's got the technical skills to do his job. But when someone doesn't say a heck yeah, I'm like, names. I want names. What is,
He's adequate. I'd say he's adequate.
It's
he's good.
funny that the emotion but I'm like, it's fair. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to be really good at what I do. And I'm thinking, okay, what part of what I do am I not great at? And so that's one that I'll be like, it bugs me. So maybe that's Enneagram 3 in me, whatever it is. But like, it takes me about 3 days. I don't know. This is day 3 since I've read mine. So it takes me at least 3 days to get over my evaluation. But it's helpful. And then my first thought is, man, why do we do this? This kind of hurts my feelings, or this is, but it's helpful. It helps us grow because it's not critical. It's a mirror, right? Yeah. So what about you?
Do you want to know the one thing on that 360 that is mine?
Yeah.
Okay. Mine is, does this leader have the technical skills to do the job?
Are you serious?
And I didn't get 100. And I that's when I literally put it down at that point. And I was like, I'll come back to this because this is ridiculous. Now, when I come back to it, I'm like, yes, I can grow in my technical skills. Yes. Are you in? Yes, of course. But that's hilarious. And I also think a really important thing for me on these is when I become fixated on one of them, and I can actually like remove myself from the process, I realize I'm finding my identity in that.
Yes.
Like when I'm not showing up. So one of the crutches for me is hustle. When I don't show up, because I can hustle, right? Mm-hmm. However, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
But then when I'm not like showing up in any of the 5 H's, I'm like, what? People are not seeing where I'm hustling, man. Like I can work. Like I can. That's
I'm
who
gonna
I
send
am.
more pings at 6 in the morning. Set my alarm to
wait
send
till
some
2
pings.
a.m. because I am gonna blow their phone up. But it's a helpful tool for me because exactly what you're saying. It's a mirror.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I doing? Like
Yeah.
Why am I looking for that?
Yeah.
So with this whole conversation, you had started right before we started recording saying, hey, you want to talk about that? I was like, yeah. Because why I think this is helpful, if you're listening, I would just ask, when's the last time you did this kind of thing? Because I'm going to guess you do this at work. I'm going to guess. Maybe not all of you.
Most places.
But when's the last time you did it with your family?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying do an anonymous 360. Maybe. I don't know. That'd actually be kind of fun with the girls.
Who did this, Nick Cran?
Who does not think I have the technical skills to be a father? But when's the last time you did it with your husband? When's the last time you did it with your wife? Like, when's the last time that you actually got into a space and you said, hey, I want to carve out an intentional time to ask really intentional questions? Because asking some of these just kind of a one-off while we're eating popcorn and watching TV is really odd.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, hey, can you trust me?
One of the reasons why we do these evaluations, we're trying to get ahead of issues before they become bigger issues, right? Yeah. And so it'd be easy for us to be like, hey, we're doing well, right? As far as our metrics, as far as the vibe and the culture of staff, things are going really well and we could get sloppy about evaluation. And sometimes that's how we do it with families, is we wait until there's an issue and we're like, what's the problem? Well, if we wait until there's a problem, then there's going to be a lot of problems, right? And so for us to, one of our campus pastors always says it this way, Andy Stanley, he says, North Point, Atlanta, he says, what's it like to be on the other side of me? What's it like on the other side of me? Something like that. And I love that line. And in something as simple as that, what's it like to be your dad? What's it like to come home from school and experience me? What's it like? I think those are good questions. You asked a couple of questions today. You were talking about these questions that you've been wrestling with. I think I was blown away by the questions, and I think those could work almost in any type of a setting. Is there a generic version of those questions that you'd walk us through that could help us?
It's unmet needs. It's from a thing that I've learned from Jamie, which she's gone through a couple of things on nonviolent communication, and the two things that she's brought up.
And that was that a court order?
It was.
That she had to do some nonviolent communication
because of that
training.
Crazy September.
Yeah.
With nonviolent communication, there's two things that she brought out of that ended up, we walk through this. I don't even know how this works, but every time we've asked these questions to anybody or even ourselves, it breaks open barriers. It's crazy. So her whole thought with that is that there's always some type of unmet need in a conversation that might not be vocalized, but it's there. So the two questions in our setting, and I'll kind of give just kind of a generic one after that, but the two questions in our setting would be, what is a need of yours that is not being met by this organization? You could ask that in this marriage, in this relationship.
It's a scary question.
It's a scary question. And the key to this is I'm going to ask you, I need you to just give me what your gut was, because you already have an answer. You know the answer. I need you to tell me what that was. And I need this to be really honest, because that's a really honest question. And it only works if there's a really honest answer. And you already know it. You already know the knee-jerk reaction. And that's your actual primal need in that space. Like it's real. The other one is, what need is not being met of yours through our working relationship or my leadership? And that would be in the way that I show up in this relationship. Like me personally, like what are you looking for? And that's not to say when you enter a relationship, there's expectations and needs and you got to meet my needs, but it's really helpful to know that Jamie has this certain need, and it's not bad to have needs. We all do.
Yeah.
But for me to be aware of that and how I show up in that is very, very important. And it's the same thing when you go through a working relationship. Like I need to know, like, what do you, Jeremy Johnson, like, what do you need from me as I work with you, for you, in the same space as you? Like, I need to know that. Like, I want to be aware of that, because I want to serve as best as I can. And the only way I'm going to do that is to be able to ask those types of questions and get the answer that's actually like real.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's powerful.
Very helpful questions.
I think, they say that practice makes perfect. I don't think practice makes perfect. I think practice makes permanent, right? Meaning, like, my handwriting, my signature, it looks the same all the time, but it's not perfect. It's just engraved, right? And evaluated experience makes improvement. And so whether it's marriage, whether it's parenting, and a lot of times we never stop to evaluate. So obviously for some, if you just think through this lens of organization and maybe it doesn't fit you or whatever, maybe this seems like just a bunch of organizational talk, but it's so much more powerful. Yes, we're part of an organization that we really believe in the mission, therefore we must evaluate it. But this is true about any relationship that's important. Parenting, works, relationships, business relationships, family relationships. So I just feel like this is a great time of year. A lot of times, not true for everybody, a lot of times people have more margin to spend with people, whether it's meetings at work where you're evaluating, or whether you just have extra time. I would encourage you, have some eggnog, have some hot chocolate, and your next date, your next time with the kids, just think in advance, what are a couple of questions that you can ask them? And I would also say this, here's part of our deal I want to make sure we communicate too. When we follow up on these surveys, one of the things that is important to us as an organization, as team leads, if someone honored us by filling out this is the survey that their name's attached to it, that we would now meet with them and we go over their questions from their survey and their responses. And we don't rebut, we don't refute, we don't give, we don't say, okay, cool, now let me tell you how you're doing in your job. That this is a separate conversation as team leads that we just say, we want to hear. We have some questions for clarity. Can you tell me a little bit more about this? Can you tell me more about that? And why we've established that in our culture is we want to really hear and value the feedback given, because some people are going to give us a little bit of the feedback to shake the limbs to see if it's safe. And if we could honor that with a follow-up question and conversation without any other agenda, then it gives us our best shot to get some more truth. And I wanted to bring that up because I think that's important in a family situation. As a parent, sometimes I've had good intention about asking kid a question, when they don't give me the answer that I like to hear, I start giving an explanation of why they might see it that way, but here were my intentions. And that will actually sabotage my intent. So what I need to just is not defend, not explain, just lean in and ask more questions. So ask for some evaluation, get some more clarity on it, and save any solutions for later. So I think that'd be helpful.
So helpful.
Yeah.
And I think it's helpful to do it not just at the end of the year.
Oh, that's true.
I know.
Yeah.
Jamie and I have a thing. We went through a lot of counseling at the beginning of our marriage. And we started our marriage by always saying like, divorce is not an option. That was like a saying.
Yeah.
We don't say that anymore. And we say divorce is an option. That's why we got to work so freaking hard.
Yeah.
Because it is. Like,
Yeah.
it's reality. Like, it's out there. And there's things that break, and there's things like having the awareness of that, right? And having an internal thing like, we don't want to go through that. So
Right.
it's not an option for me, right? And that type of deal. But understanding that like broken relationships and broken working relationships and broken parenting happens.
Yeah.
It happens. Like we don't accidentally get healthy.
Yeah.
So you've got to work at it.
That seriously sounds like that would be a killer book title on marriage. Divorce is an option.
Yeah.
And I'm like, for real. Like, I think you should go with that because now we just threw it out there for everybody.
Oh, man.
But the thing is, it's not a threat. And that's what we mean by it. But because it is out there, we can't ignore it and pretend it's not there.
Right.
So I love that. That could really, how do you have a proactive, healthy relationship? Because if we ignore it, yeah. Anyway, that's very good. Very good. All right. Well, hey, next week is a good one because we always drop one of the shortest Riff episodes of the year on the week of Christmas.
Holly jolly.
Not so long that you would tune it out, but not so short you would want to miss out. It's right in that sweet spot. And we'll see you more next week here on The Riff.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.